using animal sign that I need on rest and tweeters in a here with Swedish discussions in this new app. Using carnivorous lesson coming up now on this episode of Riff N Ralk Music Talk.
All right, so you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. Do you want to lead us in? Do you want to have that opportunity, or not feeling comfortable?
It's your thing. You go ahead.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is Riff N Ralk Music Talk. We are here. Ryan will be with us shortly to review the new Jimi Hendrix album and a classic, The Dismemberment Plan is Terrified. But right now we have Corey Deiterman, a freelance writer from the Houston Press, and he's going to be talking to us about a pretty interesting album we got here. It's The Terror, the latest album by those Oklahoma City crazy people, the Flaming Lips. Flaming Lips are, well, number one, Corey, welcome to Riff N Ralk Music Talk.
Thank you.
And the Flaming Lips, if you don't know, they've been around for 30 years.
30 years.
Though you probably only know them from when they released that Yoshimi song, and then everything before that was kind of really not under the radar. They're well known for their stage antics, such as giant hamster balls, confetti, smoke. But they also release albums, if you weren't aware, and this is their newest one called The Terror. And Corey, what did you think of The Terror?
Well, first off, I wanted to say that you're not giving enough credit to She Don't Use Jelly. That was a hit. It was like some kind of hit. I don't know. It was on 90210. Come on.
Was it really?
It was.
Oh, wow.
They played it live on there, and the characters like made some bullshit comments like they had ever heard of the band. So it's on YouTube. I've asked Wayne about it, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll do any TV show that asks, basically." So,
really quick, I wanted to comment. You've actually got to interview Wayne Coyne.
Yes, yeah. I met him, and I got to interview him, and got to talk to him for a good half hour. He's a real talkative guy, so. When you get on the phone with him, he pretty much just won't shut up with it. So, I've gotten a chance to talk to Wayne. Actually, I got to talk to him and get a little bit of information about this record, like way before it came out. It was supposed to come out in October last year, and he kind of alluded to that, and then it didn't. It's just now coming out. So
yeah, came out just 2 days ago.
Yeah, leaked a while ago though. So, I really love the record though. So, and I understand that you might have a different opinion on that.
If Corey is aware, I like some Flaming Lips songs. They have some cool tracks. Like from the last album, there was the songs "Convinced at the Hex" and "Watching the Planets Go By." There's a couple things that, like, She Don't Use Jelly is a cool track, but usually I'm kind of the opinion that they just kind of release everything and there's a lack of a filter. And Ryan and I have commented on it that I don't really like the sound of most of the albums. I mean, on a mixing level, on various levels. So when we agreed that, well, and he kind of avoided it or something, but when we agreed to review The Terror, I was really skeptical about going into it. And, I still don't have I've listened to this album 3 or 4 times at this point. I still don't have actually a formulated opinion. The first time I listened to it, excruciating experience of my life. I hated it. But every time I listen to it more and more, I'm like, there's some cool things here and there. And, I couldn't really state that I dislike the album, but I'm kind of left with I'm just kind of confused about it. Like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah, I think that's definitely kind of part of what they were going for, but that's how I felt about it too. When I first listened to it, I was just like, what the fuck? Because this record is definitely not Flaming Lips for people. It's they did like Yoshimi and stuff like that for people that and people really got into it, and I think one of the most telling things about this record is I brought, some of my friends. We went out to see the band play at the South by Southwest thing that
Yeah, they played the whole album straight, didn't they?
yeah, they played the entire album. They only played a little bit of You Lust. They played like about 4 or 5 minutes of that. They didn't do the whole 13-minute epic thing,
If
but
I could comment on that, to be fair, like
yeah,
after the first 4 or 5 minutes, I'm not sure what happens.
yeah, I
Like
mean,
that was the one track that I mean, if I could I'm there's a couple things I can gripe about, but that was one track I'm like after 4 or 5 minutes, I'm like, where the hell does this go? And it just kind of droned, and I'm like,
well,
like I was kind of waiting for it, but I was gonna comment on the South by Southwest show. That was he had what like his weird squid baby thing.
yeah, yeah, he had that, and of course none of the usual stage stuff. No confetti, no hamster ball, none of that. It was a depressing sort of stage setup where it matched the album because he was just standing there holding the baby singing, but none of the usual like fun dancing kind of antics. And a lot of my friends that came with me, and then everybody in the audience that either wasn't really familiar with their music, only knew a couple songs, or maybe they're just there for a good time. I mean, this is an audience of 30,000 people, so I, you could really hear the groans and the sighs and the coughing, just like what is going on here? We came to hear them play some happy music, dance around in a hamster ball, and Wayne even like warned the crowd beforehand and said, "We try to give y'all something new when we come out to do this, and so we're gonna do something new. We're gonna play our whole new record." After they were done, Stephen Draws, their other pretty much other frontman. He plays like half the instruments in the band. And he even apologized. He said, he apologized, he said, "Thank you for your patience." But it was really, and then they played Yoshimi stuff after like half the audience had left, and people were really happy. But
It's not a good sign when the member of the band
no,
has to like
no,
apologize. Like, hey, we're sorry, we just scared the fuck out of you with our music.
no, it's not. And I think that is like it's definitely telling about the record. But the record, I don't think it's that they need to apologize because it's bad. I think they needed to apologize and thank people for their patience because it's so dense and so depressed
Yeah,
and so hard to get into
yeah.
that that there's just no way you can play that for 30,000 people looking to have a good time, and they're gonna all be into it. So
Yeah, I think like if you were to play this in front of 30,000 people, the general reaction you get from audience members would be, I need to call my mom and tell her I love her.
yeah, see, it's definitely it's a
It's
record
just
like
like, shit, I'm sad now.
yeah, and that's kind of I think what the idea behind the record was. It sort of explained uh, that it was the idea was that it was about the absence of love in the world,
Yeah.
and this was without love, all there is terror, basically. So
Yeah. And it definitely makes you feel that way.
I feel like it accomplished that definitely.
That was the thing one of the things I always kind of that really bugs me about the Flaming Lips is that it's always kind of like plays this line of kind of poppy music and weird jack around nonsense, and which to be fair, I listen to plenty of pretentious bogus music, but for some reason the way they towed that line always bugged me. And when they kind of went so far into the weird, I kind of just went, you know what, it works for this album. I don't know if it's like something that like a lot of people will enjoy, but they really set out to do something. And again, it this is I and I think what they set out to do was definitely accomplished. The name of the album is The Terror, and you really get that. It's very dense, like you said, but it's dense, but then at the same time it's also very sparse at points too. Like I was talking to Ryan about it because he was kind of asking me, what's the album like? Because he hasn't had a chance to listen to it yet. And I went like the beginning and the end, I think really solid material. The middle, it seems like they're having a contest to go, how much of an album can we make by playing as few notes as possible?
I can
Because
kind of see that. Yeah, the middle section of the album is sort of, it is very sparse and it's very sprawling and psychedelic. It's not,
yeah,
there's no rock element to it really. It's sort of jamming, it's sort of looking for a sound. Very almost krautrock influenced a lot of it.
yeah.
And I appreciate that, but at the same time, I can understand how that would be off-putting, especially to people coming into the album, looking for the Flaming Lips, even the Flaming Lips of Embryonic, because people have been commenting on that even in some recent reviews I've seen, which I don't know if you've seen the reviews, but they're horrible.
I've
they're,
looked, and I mean, for the most part, they're.
they're
I mean,
middle, they're
they're
middle,
not.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, they could be a lot worse.
They could be worse. I feel like they don't really know what to make of it, so they just slap a 7.0 on it and say, whatever.
That was the thing that I kind of thought about when I was looking at the reviews. I always just kind of take a look. Like Metacritic's overall is a 78 out of 100. So I mean, and that's not bad by any means. But I had that thought of like, did these reviewers actually like think that this is what the album should receive, or did they just kind of go, well, I don't get it, so I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars and pretend I understood what the hell just happened to my ears.
Totally. That's exactly the vibe I got from all the reviews. That it was just like, I don't know, I don't get it, but it's the Flaming Lips, so here's a decent rating, and let me just get the fuck away from this album as fast as possible because I'm gonna kill myself if I listen to it anymore. Uh,
It reminds me of like when I would look at old Mars Volta reviews, and it definitely seemed like the reviewer was like, "I don't know what the hell this is. I'm gonna give it a 7, and please God, leave it alone."
Yeah, I mean, and you get that too with some of their later albums, the sort of I give up, I don't care. Here's that 6.0, go away. I mean, like Pitchfork's review of Octahedron, that I think it got a 6.0, and they were like, you know what you're gonna get at this point? I give up.
Yeah, it was. It's a weird. It's definitely a dense album. Let's give him a little bit of a sample. I was thinking, how about we have play a little clip up from the first track. Look, dot dot dot. The sun is rising.
Okay.
I think I would say that's my favorite track on the album, and it's a great opener, especially for how it's setting up the album. A lot of the drony sounds, but it's not like we said. The middle has a very sparse feel. This has enough, I guess, meat and potatoes, for lack of a better term, that like it gets the listener into the album. We're like, okay, this is a little weird, but I'll give it a try. Where if you were to like throw in like a track like "You Are Alone" or "The Terror" in the beginning, they'd be like, no, I'm not going any further.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I think that it really sets the tone for the record. And one thing
Yeah.
that I even thought about that I saw somebody bring up recently was that the last track, I can't remember exactly which one it was, whatever, on Embryonic, it says the sun is setting or something like that. And
Oh,
then this one kind of picks up from there. And it's just a really cool connection that I hadn't even sort of put together. And then, of course, do you realize saying the sun doesn't really set? And then they've got this theme going on. So when they open the record, it's like, look, the sun is rising and you're in it now.
and
So,
the album cover kind of conveys almost that thing where it's you got the person sitting there and there's like the overexposure of light. It's kind of a
which I
uh,
feel like they've been moving in that direction lately too, with Embryonic and with this album, some of their other things. They kind of I don't know if they got. Well, I mean, are you familiar with At War with the Mystics?
a little bit, but you can probably make much better comments about it than I can.
I feel like it's a pretty good album, but it had definitely run their pop sound had run its course basically.
Sure.
So when you get to that album, the whole Yoshimi thing had just completely run its course, and it was getting kind of repetitive. it seemed like they didn't really know what they were doing at that point. That's probably one of my least favorite records from them. And I think that it's been a conscious effort to step away from that because that one got a lot of bad reviews too. Um, and I feel like most people were just sort of meh on it. So when with their more recent direction, I feel like they're trying to consciously go back to a different sound, to a different era of their career, while still pushing forward, obviously, but getting away from all that pop stuff because it was just kind of running its course. It was getting tired. So,
Which is definitely going to be alienating for the fans that only know them from their pop material. I've really never heard them live. I've seen, some little video clips here and there. But I feel like probably like the embryonic stuff could be pulled off in a happy-go-lucky kind of way where they can get away with it still and still have their giant party. But I think that's that's the Flaming Lips. Obviously, people really gravitate towards primarily is the fun Yoshimi, War with the Mystics, those stuff where it's funner music, less music that makes you really sad inside.
oh yeah, I mean, and I've seen them. I've seen them 3 times, and one of the times was during the Embryonic tour, and they did the whole stage thing, but they just they fit in the embryonic material and made it work for that setting. Like
Sure.
he got in the hamster ball immediately as soon as the show started, even while they were playing Worm Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really heavy, dark track, but he's like rolling around on the crowd, so nobody gives a shit. Um, but when you're dealing with this material and especially toning out, phasing out that sort of aesthetic live, I feel like it really is just too depressing to pull off. It's too much of a contrast between the two. So you kind of have
Yeah.
a decision like they did. Like, are we going to just play the whole album all the way through, or are we going to mix it up? Because mixing it up, I don't think would work really.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think they made a like with Embryonic, even though that album was a little bit denser, a little bit less poppy, they could still get away with the antics. And I think the fans kind of, I would get the vibe that the fans appreciate that, where it's all this stuff's going on, even if the music isn't as fun and exciting. Like if you were to have confetti and smoke and giant hamster balls when you're listening to "You Are Alone," you'd be like, "What the hell is this
Yeah,
contrast here?" It's like we're having a party to the saddest song in the world.
yeah, definitely. Um, One thing that I wanted to comment on when it comes to this record is that a lot of the sound of it, that dense sound, and a lot of the depressing aspect of it is really up to the studio trickery, the sort of production on it,
hmm
because
hmm
a lot of that I think comes through because of the production, and I have to hand it to them that they did a great job on that, making it sound the way it does. They wanted it to sound that way, obviously, and it comes through really strongly. But one thing I heard actually yesterday was this band from Oklahoma, Horse Thief. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, I didn't hear, but I saw it.
Yeah, Horse Thief, this band from Oklahoma, did a split with them where they each covered one of their songs, and the Flaming Lips did a really kind of boring cover of one of Horse Thief's songs. Honestly, I was just like bored as hell during it, but then Horse Thief did a version of uh, blanking on the song. I think they did. I think they did. You Are Alone, or no, they did Try to Explain. They did Try to Explain, and honestly, I mean, the cover doesn't stand out that much. But what really got me about it is that they play it without any of that production, without
Uh-huh.
any trickery or anything. And I feel like what comes through is that the songwriting is actually really strong. Like you get just a completely different vibe from it. The song is really strong by itself that it can stand up without the production. You just don't get that depressing vibe from it, really. So it almost, I mean, their cover almost sounded like a Beach Boys song. Sort of mournful, but, still kind of happy, you know?
I love a Brian Wilson version of Butterfly How Long It Takes to Die.
God, yeah, that would be great.
with all the doo-wopping and everything.
Yeah, I mean that would be incredible, but that stood out to me a lot is that the songwriting is so strong even
Mhm.
without that dense dark sound.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, what was your thought on the fact that they used Butterfly, How Long It Takes to Die, considering that was already from a Flaming Lips release? It was from the 6 hour song, what, Strobo Trip or whatever it's called.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly never got that the Strobo Trip, so I hadn't been aware of the song before.
Yep.
Uh, and when I heard the album for the first time, I heard Butterfly, and immediately that was my favorite song on the record, ironically. And I was like, this is great. I want to share it. So I went to YouTube. Nobody had put it up yet, but there was a version of it up on there. And I went there and I'm like, oh, this is the old version. And that was the first I had been aware that it was kind of an older song.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, two things struck me. One, uh, it did feel a little cheap to put it on this record,
Sure.
even though they had already released it. So
But
it's like,
they
and
did
it's
re-record it though, it seems like.
yeah, and that was the second thing that I felt they I felt like it was a little bit cheap because you've only got 50 minutes of material here versus the most of their albums are a lot longer. So this is
Yes.
only 50 minutes long, and yet 8 minutes of it is previously released. So that kind of is a big chunk. But the second thing I thought is listening to the old version, I was like, this is not nearly as good. The production on it kind of sucks. I know they at least remixed it if they didn't completely re-record it, and I
Mhm.
think they might have just completely re-recorded it. And I honestly think the new version is a huge improvement over the old one. So I don't begrudge them for it, but it is what it is. If they want to put out an old song, I mean, the whole rapid fire toll booth Goliath thing, with the Mars Volta. I mean, whatever. But it is kind of an older song, regardless. So
Well, for those of you who aren't aware, on the Mars Volta's fourth album, the Bedlam and Goliath, the fifth track Goliath, the song Goliath, is actually a remake of an older song from one of Omar Rodriguez Lopez's solo albums called Rapid Fire Toll Booth. And Rapid Fire Toll Booth was a track that was played for about a year live and as the form of Rapid Fire Toll Booth. There's some slight variations. Rapid Fire is a little bit of a less dense, a little bit. So there's sort of a lot of commentary on that. But the only thing I would say on that was that Goliath was real. I mean, yeah, the main song was kind of it was the same riff, the same whatever, but I think it was like so divergent from Rapid Fire Toll Booth and when they're yeah, in one way they're the same song, but they're almost completely different songs where these both versions of Butterfly sounded different enough where I was like, okay, it's not like they literally just took the track that they already released and put it on the album. Then it would have been really cheap. But
yeah. Well, I know they had been working on it back in 2011, but I maybe one thing that I was thinking about it is that there has to be a reason that it didn't come out in October. Maybe they wanted to put more work into it, more production work, and maybe that's why the new version sounds so different or different enough from the last version. Maybe they
sure,
want
sure.
more work into it, but normally I wouldn't really care about something like this. I think the only thing that feels really wrong to me about it is just the fact that this album holds together so well as a concept and as a statement that to reuse a track almost felt a little bit like you've got a concept here, and it feels like it's something that should be created all at once. It should all come
Sure.
together. Like they should all be a part of the same continuum. And then there's this one track which sounds completely like it's there. Like you don't even think about it when you're listening to the record unless you already know that it was out before. Um, like when I first heard the record, I didn't think anything of it until I found out. But after finding out, it just feels a little bit cheap to make such a strong statement with such a overarching message.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is kind of taken from somewhere else, so it's not really a part of the message. it's been retrofitted to become a message. So
That's a good.
in that way, it feels cheap. But
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's actually a really good way of putting it. You know, you say it fits in really well, and to some extent I would agree. But when I thought about like how it fit in with "You Are Alone" and "Turning Violent," because "Butterfly," "How Long It Takes to Die" sits right between those, and those two songs are. I mean, "Butterfly" is a much has a much more traditional song structure compared to "You Are Alone" and "Turning Violent," which are little bit much airier and spacier. And then this song, it's like also we have this weird 7 minutes of structure in between the floating around in dread and abyss.
mhm.
But I think overall it works. I don't if you didn't know it was in Strobo Trip, you wouldn't care and you'd be like, okay, this all works. I think it's like the fact that you know that it was somewhere else before and it wasn't like dramatically reworked and it kind of is shoved in there that kind of cheapens the experience. The only thing I would say about it too is that 55 minutes, I mean, that's not a short album by any means, but when you pull that 7 minutes out, that cuts a decent chunk of the album. That's more than like 10% of the album is more than 10% of the album is a re-release.
Yeah. And that's yeah, I mean, and like I said, when I first heard it, I know that it was older, so it didn't occur to me until afterwards, and that did sort of make me feel a little bit differently, but I feel like it hangs in there well enough. I kind of disagree that it doesn't fit sort of with turning violence. I feel like there's a really great flow from those last three songs. Like
Okay,
just
okay.
from Butterfly to Always There in Our Hearts, I feel like there's not even a real divergent line to me. I just listen to all three of those usually together as like one big epic because I feel like they flow into each other so well and they
Yeah.
just continue the same theme because that's where the record sort of gets more upbeat and a little bit more rock oriented.
Sure,
And
sure.
I feel like that part really holds together awesomely. So I wouldn't want Butterfly taken out of the record because I feel like it works great in the position it's in. But there is a little bit of a pause between the preceding songs. You're alone, the terror, and then you get Butterfly, and there is a divergence there that's a little bit strange.
Sure, sure. I think overall, I think you're right. At the end of the day, it's not a big deal, or it works. And you kind of have to have you kind of have your own opinion about whether it's a good fit or what your opinion is about shoving that song in there. I think one thing that I did like about the album is that it's definitely like one big cohesive thought, and
Hmm.
that it plays really. If you like the album, it plays really well from start to finish. Obviously, if you don't like the album, it's going to be a nightmare to get through all 55 minutes. But as it's one big thought, and it feels like it all just kind of connects together in its own sad and dreary way. This is probably the first time we've done an album review where like I can only comment that like it elicits such a sad emotion.
I feel like the emotion it elicits and the sort of vibe that it was going for, the message, the goal of it, they just pulled it off so well. And I rarely ever hear a record, even good ones, that they're going for something and actually achieve it very well. Um,
Sure.
because so often you hear of like concepts or ideas for a record and it just doesn't hang together, even if it's a good record. So for this one, I was really impressed with that, especially that you can listen to it from start to finish, and it just all hangs together so well, and all sounds the same, but not in a bad way. I mean, not that every song sounds the same, but that it all is so cohesive and works together to the end goal, basically.
Yeah, definitely,
Like this
definitely.
is definitely a record where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I don't think that if you don't enjoy one song, you're probably not going to enjoy a different song. You should probably just give up on the album. But if you enjoy one song, you're probably just going to listen to the whole thing all the way through, and it's going
Sure.
to be a whole experience. It really is more of an experience, an album length experience than it is a collection of songs, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the if you had a chance to listen to them, the bonus tracks? We have a version of All You Need Is Love and Sun Blows Up Today, which is a Sun Blows Up Today is obviously a bizarre contrast.
definitely. I have not heard the All You Need Is Love. But I did hear "Sun Blows Up Today" when it first came out. It was the Super Bowl song. They
Yeah,
had it
yeah.
advertisement, and I was not really into the track at all, honestly. I mean, it's a throwback to the pop sort of phase that they had, which I don't know if you heard this, but they did sort of the same thing on Embryonic. They had a couple bonus tracks that were more in the Yoshimi vein, I guess.
Ah, okay.
And those ones were okay, but they're not really my favorite thing on there. This one, not really my favorite thing either, but it is what it is. It's a throwback to that, and especially in the context of a commercial that's going to be seen by a couple million people. If that's still the image of themselves that they want to give to people, I think that accomplishes it very well. I'm not sure how true it is though, because this song might sell the terror to people, and then they're going to buy the record and have no idea what's going on.
I just want to imagine that, like, someone sees the music video or saw the car commercial, like, this is the new Flaming Lips, and then they put the CD in, they're like, what the fuck is this?
They skip to the last track of the bonus tracks immediately. They're just like,
They're
this is
like,
the song I really wanted anyway.
oh man, they were actually the Flaming Lips were on Letterman, I think, a couple weeks ago or last week,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
they played "Look, the Sun Is Rising," and like I really imagined that they would pan the camera to the house band, and like in Indiana Jones when all the Nazi faces are melting, like that was what's happening. They're like, whoa, because
Oh,
they still have Wayne attached to the giant squid baby thing, the little baby doll with all the tentacles or whatever, and you're just like, what the hell is this?
yeah. I mean, and they definitely, I think, showed off their real direction with that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like Sun Blows Up Today was sort of like a lie to the people of the Super Bowl.
They're just they're either like trolling really well or just pandering. I can't tell which one it is.
Either. I think they did a little bit too. Did you see the Verizon commercial?
No, I didn't.
It comes on YouTube a lot when you load up a video. If you don't have ad block, which I didn't for a long time because I'm an idiot, they they have this ad that comes up advertising all this weird shit's going on, and then you see Wayne Coyne in like a future chair. It's like they're like one of these egg-shaped chairs or something from like the movies, like a Dune chair or something. Baron, uh, and he's just sitting there. He's like in his usual suit and everything, his leisure suit. Like, yeah, this is Verizon. This is the wave of the future. You have to buy it, and I don't know. Good on them for making money.
They're at least they're unabashed about it. They're like, yeah, we needed a check.
Yeah. Well, and they don't sell out though. They keep making records like The Terror even while they're doing Verizon commercials.
Like
So,
no one bought the 24-hour song in a skull bit, so we had to recover our losses from that shit.
did you ever hear the story behind the Soft Bulletin?
No, I did not.
That was kind of the same idea with the Zyreka project, with the 4 discs and everything.
Yeah.
With Zyreka, they told the record label, "We'll give you a real album if you just let us put this out. Just let us do this, and we'll give you a hit." And that I think they even gave them like a pre-release single or something. Like, here, put out this single. Promise people that we're gonna get around to a real album, but we really want to do this Zyreka thing. So they kind of bought off the record label by saying, "We'll make the Soft Bulletin if you let us do this."
If you take a major financial hit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've sold 28,000 copies. I read so far.
They sold 20,000 copies of Zyreka?
28,000, which I mean, that nowadays is a pretty good number, but
Yeah.
97, that was garbage. So
I was thinking like maybe they sold 28 copies.
I don't know. I mean, maybe people kept losing one of the discs and they had to.
Oh fuck, I lost another CD. We have to buy the whole stupid thing over again.
And they need to sell like replacement discs. If it's one, you can get one of them.
Or it's like the whole stupid when they released Omar released Telestarian and like you get the wrong discs for some reason. Like, oh, you have to special order the replacements.
Yeah, right. Oh, stupid shit.
Have you listened to Zyrika?
I have actually only recently.
God, that thing
Wait.
was just it pissed me off so much.
Oh, the four discs for me were just kind of garbage. I mean, I can't listen to. I tried to listen to a little bit of it, and I said this is not working because it's all cut apart. I mean, if you put all the tracks together, which I did download a version of it where somebody put all the tracks together,
Sure.
and that version I thought was really good. But the four discs, I tried listening to like the individual ones, and it just doesn't work. It's really shitty to listen to just one, you know?
I like that. Did you ever notice that Zyrika comes with a warning label on the cover?
Yeah, yeah, it warns you like, hey, this is gonna suck. Basically.
It really should at the bottom. We swear there's a real release coming soon.
You'll never be able to get this to sync up. Don't even try. I don't know why you're buying this thing, but here you go.
That was like I forget who made the comment of like, well, that's the whole point. It's supposed to be unsynchronized. I'm like, oh god, that's the last thing I would really love to listen to are four unsynchronized CDs playing at once.
Well,
What more
especially
fun could I have?
yeah, especially when you consider that Wayne's voice is like doubled on a lot of the tracks. So you've got like his same vocals on each one of the tracks from the four discs. So if you get them unsynced, he's basically just going to be like you know, like it's going to be constantly skipping between like one word is going to be unsynchronized and it's an echo. It's just it's not going to work, you know, even if you're just like 2 seconds off, you know.
Uh, anyway, I think this easily the longest review I've ever done. But at the end of the day,
Well, it's a difficult record, so
it very much is. Would you recommend The Terror? Now, here's the thing. I'm hearing that you really like the album.
yeah. I mean, I'm really into it,
Okay.
but I'm
But would
also
you recommend the album to a listener?
it depends on the listener. It's difficult. I mean, it, I would recommend it to people that want to either experience something that's sort of different from most records because it's not you're not really going to get this from any other record. Even if you don't like it, it's still sort of a thing where you can say, I've been through that experience and now it's like um and I would recommend it to really hardcore Flaming Lips fans because I think that most of them will be able to get it. I mean, if you can get through the four discs of Zyrika with the missing tracks on each disc, then you can probably listen to this,
Hmm.
even if you don't like it. You know, if you got through the 24-hour song, you can listen to this. Um, and I would also recommend it to people that are really into like experimental music and sort of drone stuff. You know, fans of The Knife, of Scott Walker, of really experimental stuff. If you're in that realm already and you know that kind of thing, then this is really not going to be that shocking to you, even if you might not like it, you might love it. I don't know, but it's not really going to shock you. But for somebody who's, you know, heard Yoshimi fights the pink robots or battles the pink robots and do you realize and think that they're a Flaming Lips fan now? Probably go with the Soft Bulletin or At War with the Mystics and just be wary of this one for a while. So, it's
I would
complicated, but that's my answer.
I would have to probably at the end of the day there are definitely points of this album where I was just kind of like, really, come on. But I think that's more of a personal thing. If you are into more experimental music, if you like the weird songs on a Can album, you'll like this album. If you like if you want a throbbing gristle song with more structure, you will like The Terror. Um, there's many instances if you like more experimental music, you'll probably appreciate this. If you like something poppy, if you liked our Avett Brothers review or any of our reviews of more poppy albums, you went, yeah, that's something for me. This is probably not going to be your avenue. I'd say if you really feel bold, listen to the first track, and if you're if you're put off like halfway through it, then just stop and don't torture yourself. It's not going to click, and I think that's clearly the point, is that this is not going to be an album for everybody.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, it's not going to please everyone, but it's at least going to evoke a response, and it's really going to further the agenda that they're going for, because I really think they accomplished what they wanted to do with it. So
Definitely, definitely.
might not be for everybody, but it is what it is,
Yeah. Well, all right. Corey, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. You are welcome back anytime.
Yes.
All right. And just to recap, Corey Deiterman is a music lover, also a writer for the Houston. Oh shit, I forgot it. What press?
Houston Press.
The Houston Press. So if you go on the Houston Press, you might be able to find some articles written by him. Fantastic writer, and as you can see, a very opinionated but eloquently opinionated fan of music. Corey, once again, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks. No problem.
All right.
Anytime.
And that's that. All right, cool. Thanks.
Awesome.
Take care.
Cool. So that's it. Later, dude.
Yep.